Trace 4 pointed templates on your focus fabric. Use your ruler and rotary cutter, cut those straight edges, cut off the points, and then on the bottom edge, just use your scissors to cut the curve. Now this is the curve template. There's 4 fabrics. Just trace 4 on the top of one. Use your ruler, cut it off, cut off the curves with your scissors. Lay all 20 pieces out and then sew the groups of 4 together and then the pointed template into one and press the seams open. Now take your fusible interfacing, place wrong side against fusible side, sew around the outside edge with a 1/8 inch seam. Now this is your oval. Put an open toe foot on your machine, set your machine for 18 stitches to the inch, and just sew on the line. And then once you've sewn on all the lines, trim 1/8 inch away. Cut a small hole in the center of the back, put a straw into the opening. Use your ballpoint bodkin and push half of the oval into the straw. Remove the straw and then just repeat on the opposite side. Put your straw in, push your end in with the bodkin, and then use your bodkin to run around the inside edge, and to make it perky on the ends, pick it out with your stiletto. Now, take your turned plate, use your point turner, smooth out the curves, and then use the pointed end of the tool and poke out the points. Now you need to have a background square. Just place your Dresden plate on top. You're going to place your ovals next. Put those on opposite sides, and 2 more, and then all you have to do is fuse it in place with steam, front and back, and then stitch around the outside edge, and you're done. Flip 6 pieces into 3 pairs. Just stack them up into one stack. Put your template on top. Trace around the outside edge, and then you can just go ahead, trim off those sides and bottom. You're ready for sewing. This is the quarter circle. Just trace a quarter circle on there. Cut that out. Woo! That's good. Okay, assembly line sew those 3 sets of pairs. When they're done, sew the 3 sets into 1 fan. Now the raw edge is finished with rickrack. Just line up the rickrack with the raw edge, stitch down through the middle, and repeat with your quarter circle. Turn that rickrack under, place it on your background, and stitch in the ditch. Sew 2.5 inch strips from a jelly roll together and then cut them into sections. Put your template on top, match up the raw edge with the edge of the template, and trace your top, your sides, and your bottom. They're already stitched, so just go ahead and cut. Open them up and press your seams open. Trim off your quarter circle, lay out your 3 pairs, and just edge stitch 1/4 inch in along the top edge. And then turn that raw edge under, press it with the iron. Pin the edges together so that you have those seams all matched at the top. Place them on the background square and turn under the raw edges and pin. Your quarter circle comes last, and then just finish with a blanket stitch. Take a 60-degree equilateral triangle and cut 2 triangles for 2 baskets. You're going to add strips to 2 sides. So just place them one against the first side, so a 1/4 inch seam trimmed to match the triangle, so the second strip, and just use the triangle to trim up the handle. Take 2 rectangles or wrong sides together, cut 1 diagonal line, place them on either side of the triangle. Sew the triangle on the second side and just sew along there, and then press toward the triangle. This is the bottom. Take a background and a print, right sides together, draw a diagonal line, and sew a 1/4 inch seam on both sides. Cut the squares in half, square them up, take your pattern for your bottom and just place it on the square and trim across that top edge. That gets rickrack to turn under the raw edge, so rickrack on the basket, place the 2 together and put them on your handle. Pin them so they're all lined up, and then just stitch in the ditch on the rickrack. The last thing is to take a square, cut it in half on one diagonal, and those are going to go on the bottom, right sides together. Now, if you want to have a tablecloth, cut off the bottom. You can use a handkerchief fold on one diagonal across the bottom or a piece of fabric. Sew your rows together and then finish off with a ribbon bow. You just fiddle with it, pin it in place first before you tack it down by hand, then make some applique flowers. These are 2 pieces of fabric sewn right sides together. Cut a little hole on one side, turn it with the straw and the bodkin, and push out those curves. Gather a leaf and place it behind the flower. Finish it off with a button. Place 2 fabrics right sides together. Draw a line down the middle and 2 diagonal lines. Sew a 1/4 inch from both sides of the diagonal line, and then cut them into 4 different pieces. Square them to 3.5 inches. This is the 6.5 inch triangle square up ruler. Put 3.5 on the line, trim the extra, press them to the dark, and then trim off those points. The strips are 1.5 inches wide, and they have to measure 3.5 inches when they're sewn together. So take the seam test and measure. Check with your ruler. Sew a set of strips together, cut 4 with your 3.5 fussy cut ruler, and put those in place. Now the 9 patches next. Put 2 sets of strips together, cut 4 1.5 inch segments, and then cut the rest over into individual 1.5 inch pieces. Sew your 9 patch together, press those seams, lay it out. Put squares right sides together, draw a diagonal line, sew and cut in half. Press to the dark and put them back right sides together, line them up, and draw another diagonal line. Lock that center, sew 1/4 of an inch from the diagonal line. Use your stiletto and just do some good old assembly line sewing. Both sides of the line. Cut them on the line. Check on the back, make sure it's flat. And then open it up, and there's the patch. They both look great. Now we're going to swirl. We're going to swirl clockwise on one. Remove the stitches. The second one, swirl counterclockwise. So they'll lock together in the end. Press them flat and put them on a turnable mat with a 3.5 inch fussy cut ruler. Trim on all 4 sides. That patch goes together with the stripe. Okay, lay out the block. The stripe in between goes really fast. And that's the way you make it. This is the flower pot. Trace it on the smooth side of fusible interfacing. Place the fusible side against the right side of the fabric and sew on the lines with 18 stitches per inch. Trim 1/8 inch away from the stitch lines. And then cut a little hole in the interfacing. Put a straw into the middle and use the bodkin to turn it right side out. And then just take that bodkin and run it around on the inside to smooth the edges. Now you want to stuff it for dimension, so cut a piece of batting exactly the same size. Use a pair of hemostats to insert the batting through the hole in the interfacing. Just grab hold of it and just go through the hole and pull it out to the corners. This is for your bias stem. It's 1 inch wide. Make 1 diagonal cut and then cut the strip into 1 inch pieces. The hexagon is on freezer paper, so you just draw the lines on freezer paper. Make it durable by pressing 2 together, and then just cut out that shape so it's nice and strong. Put it on a square and trim off the corners. Use a glue stick to turn under those raw edges. Just run a little line along the edge. Fold it. You make a miter in each one of the corners, and then after this dries, you just pull out the fuser paper. Now take the background square and mark in 1.5 inches the whole way around. That will disappear. You have your stem. Your bias stem goes right down through the middle, and go ahead, get that pinned in place and curve the top edges. Place the leaves, the pot, the flowers, and sew it all down. Take a fabric circle and sew it together with fusible interfacing. Fold it in 4s and then turn it right side out and cut it into 4s. That's your little quarter circles. And then take your background square, fold it in half one way and the other, and place your quarter circles. Fuse them down and sew along the circle. Okay, now you can go ahead and trim away that backing part, or you can just leave it on there, whichever you like. The stems come next. They're 2.5 inch stems, and just take them and actually place them in between the quarter circles and stitch the ends down. Take a square, cut it on one diagonal, sew on two opposite sides, and then fold it out and sew on the remaining two sides. And you're ready for your applique. Just fold out your stem, pin it down, and then get your little flowers, little circle flowers, your little leaves, and applique them in place. And that is all that's to the Posey Block. It's very fun. Cut 2 different widths of strips and then take them and put them back right sides together. 2 sets. Assembly line sew them, just pedal to the metal. Okay, put one in the bottom, the second one right sides together to it. Lock the seams. Put glow line at 5 inches. That's the width of the 2 strips. And you just take your kaleidoscope ruler and turn up and down. You need to have 4 pairs are ready for assembly line sewing. And that's actually 1/4 of the block. Take 2 1/4s, flip them right sides together into halves, lock those seams. When you put the halves together, make sure you push the top seam up and the underneath seam down for the swirling. Unsew those stitches right in the middle on both sides, and then lay the block flat. Take your finger and just open up that very center, mush it good, lay it nice and flat. Go ahead and trim off those little guys right on the edges, and now you're ready for your corner triangles. Put dark on light and light on dark, and you'll have your pattern perfect. Center your corners when you sew them on and then press toward the corners. Square them up to 8.5 inches, but don't trim off that 1/4 inch seam. We're making triangle piece squares. They're 2.5 inches square. So get your cutting done. Take the 6.5 inch triangle square up ruler, square them up to 2.5 inches. Lay all of those triangle piece squares along with dark triangles and light triangles on the sides. That's 1/4 of the block. They're sewn together in rows, and then just trim off those tips once you're finished. Take corners in both red and off-white, sew them to opposite sides, make 4 of them just like that, and then square off some of those tips on the outside. Make them nice and straight. Take 4 of those, lay them out, and that's your block. And that's beautiful.